A former Navy SEAL was throwing a tennis ball for his K9 when a terrified caregiver ran across the park and grabbed his arm. "Please," she whispered, clutching a bag full of documents. "Don't let them take me back." Three well-dressed people were walking toward her. They did not run. They did not shout. They smiled like they were only trying to help. But Caleb Mercer had spent too many years learning that danger often wore a calm face. At his side, Ranger, the Belgian Malinois K9 who had never ignored fear, rose slowly from the grass. Then the dog turned toward a black SUV waiting beyond the trees. And Caleb realized the woman was not just running from a nursing home. She was running from a secret someone had spent years trying to bury. The last tennis ball rolled beneath a maple tree as the late summer sun lowered over Briar Glen Park. Caleb Mercer watched it settle in the grass, then rested one hand at his side and waited. Ranger noticed it before he did. The Belgian Malinois stood still near Caleb's left boot, 5 years old and built like tension held inside skin and muscle. His deep fawn coat darkened toward mahogany along his back, while a clean black mask framed sharp dark amber eyes. His ears remained upright beneath the warm evening light. The tan tactical K9 vest fit close against his lean body, and the simple working dog collar around his neck barely moved as he breathed. Ranger had once been trained to read small changes in sound, posture, and scent. Retirement had softened none of that focus. Caleb followed the dog's gaze. A woman was running across the open lawn. She was not running fast. She was running like someone who had already used up most of her strength before reaching the park. She was around 37, with a slim but sturdy frame shaped by long shifts on her feet. Her olive-toned skin had gone pale beneath the heat. Black hair, usually tied neatly for work, had slipped loose from a low ponytail and clung to the side of her face. She wore a light blue caregiver scrub top beneath a thin gray cardigan, navy scrub pants, and white nursing shoes stained near the toes with grass and dust. A small name badge hung crooked against her chest. Maya Torres clutched a gray document bag with both hands. Behind her, 3 people walked along the paved path from the parking lot. They were not shouting. They were not running. That was the first thing Caleb noticed. At 33, Caleb had learned that the most dangerous people often made danger look reasonable. His angular, rugged face gave little away as he studied them. His clean-shaven jaw remained set. Cold blue-gray eyes moved from the woman to the people behind her. His neat, short undercut, tight at the faded sides and textured on top, did not shift in the breeze. The green digital camouflage uniform he wore was standard issue, properly fitted and buttoned, plain black belt at his waist and black combat boots planted firmly in the grass. He carried no weapon, no vest, no patches, no visible sign of rank, but his posture alone made strangers give him space. Maya reached him and grabbed his forearm. "Please," she whispered. Her voice trembled, but her eyes did not look confused. They looked cornered. "Please don't let them take me back." Ranger moved before Caleb spoke. The dog stepped between Maya and the approaching group, head low, shoulders tight, body steady. The tallest man slowed first. He was in his early 50s, broad through the chest with a polished confidence that had probably opened many doors for him. His charcoal suit was tailored perfectly, his white shirt crisp, his burgundy tie neatly centered. Brown hair touched with gray was combed back from a square face. His smile was polite enough for a charity dinner, but his light brown eyes never warmed. "Mrs. Torres," he said gently, "you're upsetting people." Maya's grip tightened around Caleb's arm. The man looked at Caleb with practiced patience. "Sir, I'm Grant Holloway, Executive Director at Willow Creek Senior Living. Miss Torres has had a difficult day. She removed confidential files from our facility, and we're concerned she may be overwhelmed." Beside him stood a woman in her 40s with blonde hair cut into a severe chin-length bob. She wore a cream blouse, black slacks, and a clipped employee badge. Her thin mouth stayed pressed into a line as though kindness was a policy she had learned but never trusted. Behind them was a heavier man in a dark polo shirt, red-faced from the heat, his hands clasped in front of him like he was trying not to make fists. Maya shook her head. "They're lying." Grant's smile remained in place. "Miss Torres has always cared deeply for our residents," he said. "Sometimes that kind of emotional investment can become unhealthy." Caleb heard the phrase for what it was. Not concern, not compassion. A trap. Maya swallowed hard and lifted the document bag slightly. "They're stealing from the residents. They cut therapy, food, medication, transportation. Then they put the money somewhere nobody will look." The heavy man shifted his weight. Ranger's eyes locked onto him. A mother pushing a stroller slowed nearby. 2 teenagers stopped throwing a football. Someone near the fountain raised a phone. Grant noticed all of it. His voice softened further. "These are serious accusations from a distressed employee. We only want to bring her somewhere safe." Caleb looked at Maya. Sweat shone along her temple. Her breathing was uneven. But beneath the fear, he saw something more familiar. The rigid effort of a person trying not to break before someone finally listened. "What's in the bag?" he asked. Maya stared at him for a second. Then she said, "Proof." Ranger suddenly stopped watching the three people in front of him and turned toward the parking lot, his ears lifted higher. A black SUV sat beyond the trees with its engine running. Inside, a man Caleb had not noticed before was holding a phone near his face, watching them through the windshield. Maya saw it too. Her voice dropped to almost nothing. "They didn't come here to talk to me." Caleb felt something cold settle beneath his ribs. Not fear. Recognition. Grant followed Ranger's attention, then recovered quickly. "You're misunderstanding the situation." "No," Caleb said. His voice was quiet. That made it sharper. "I think I'm starting to understand it." The heavy man took one step forward. Ranger gave a low warning growl. Not loud, not wild, but deep enough that everyone nearby heard it. The man stopped at once. Grant's expression changed for the first time. The smile did not disappear, but it became thinner. "Control your dog," he said. Caleb looked down at Ranger. "He is controlled." Maya pressed the document bag against her chest. 5 years, she said, almost to herself. "I spent 5 years writing things down because nobody believed me." Grant's eyes flicked to the bag. Caleb caught it. That was all he needed. Far across the park, a faint siren rose from the road. The mother with the stroller had made the call. Another person had begun recording openly now. Grant adjusted his cuff. "This is unfortunate," he said. "Mrs. Torres, you are making a serious mistake." Maya's chin trembled, but she did not look away. Grant turned to Caleb. "You have no idea what you're involving yourself in." Caleb's expression remained calm, but something old moved behind his blue-gray eyes. Years ago, he had learned what happened when good people convinced themselves a problem belonged to someone else. He had carried that lesson longer than he wanted. "Maybe not," he said. "But I know what fear looks like." The sirens grew closer. Grant stepped back. The woman with the blonde bob followed. The heavy man kept his distance from Ranger as they returned toward the parking lot. The black SUV pulled away first, disappearing beyond the trees. Only when they were gone did Maya's knees buckle. Caleb caught her by the elbow. Ranger pressed against her leg, solid and warm. Maya looked down at the dog, then at Caleb. "I don't have anywhere safe to go," she whispered. Caleb glanced toward the parking lot one last time. Then he looked at the gray bag in her hands. "Now you do," he said. Caleb's house stood at the far edge of Briar Glen, beyond a row of aging cedar trees, and a shuttered equipment garage where he repaired tractors, generators, and whatever else the farmers brought him when nobody in town had the patience to fix it. It was a modest single-story place with faded cream siding, a narrow porch, and a backyard large enough for Ranger to run without crashing through a neighbor's fence. By the time they arrived, the last light had drained from the sky. Maya Torres sat stiffly at Caleb's kitchen table, both hands wrapped around the gray document bag, as if it might disappear if she loosened her grip. The fluorescent light above her made her look more exhausted than she had in the park. Her olive-toned face was drawn tight with worry, and the loose strands of black hair around her cheeks had dried in uneven waves. She had washed dirt from one scraped palm at the sink, but the faint red marks around her wrist were still visible. Ranger lay beside the back door, his lean mahogany and fawn body stretched across the cool floorboards. His dark amber eyes were half closed, but Caleb knew better than to mistake stillness for sleep. The Belgian Malinois had positioned himself so he could see Maya, the kitchen entrance, and the rear window all at once. Caleb placed 2 mugs on the table. He drank coffee black. Maya had added sugar without asking, then stared at the spoon in her hand as though she had forgotten what it was for. "You said 5 years," Caleb said. Maya nodded slowly. "For 5 years, I kept telling myself it was probably bad management." Her voice was quieter now, stripped of the panic from the park. "Then I told myself maybe I was reading too much into it. But people started getting hurt." She opened the gray bag. Inside were folders marked with colored tabs, printed emails, copies of invoices, staff schedules, medication logs, and handwritten notes in tight blue ink. Caleb had seen intelligence reports overseas that looked less organized. Maya's hands shook once as she spread the papers across the table, then steadied. "Willow Creek said they were struggling," she continued. "Grant told staff we had to become more efficient. Fewer overtime hours, fewer transportation trips, smaller supply orders. He said it was the only way to keep the doors open. Caleb studied an invoice near the top of the stack. Bright Horizon Supplies, he read. They were supposed to provide nutritional supplements, Maya said, for residents with diabetes, swallowing problems, cancer recovery, all of that. The invoices say they delivered every month. Did they? Maya looked at him. Not once. The room went quiet except for the refrigerator humming behind them. She pointed to another document. Evergreen Wellness Consulting. They billed Willow Creek for physical therapy planning. Northfield Transportation billed for medical rides that never happened. Caleb scanned the numbers. He was not an accountant, but he understood patterns. The same amounts appeared again and again, large enough to matter, small enough not to draw attention from someone who only read the totals. What happened when residents missed appointments? He asked. Maya's mouth tightened. Some waited weeks. One man missed a cardiology follow-up twice. A woman named Mrs. Landry stopped getting her balance therapy, then fell trying to reach the bathroom alone. She paused, looking down at the paper. They wrote that she had refused assistance. Caleb felt his jaw harden. Maya lifted a staff schedule. They cut evening aids, then told family staffing levels were stable. They cut meal portions and called it dietary adjustment. They stopped replacing nurses who quit. Every time someone asked questions, Grant said the same thing. What? The records show standards are being met. Caleb had heard that kind of sentence before. It was the language people used when they wanted a document to matter more than a human being. Maya looked toward Ranger. The dog raised his head as if he had heard his name, though nobody had spoken it. I started making copies after Mr. Dwyer, she said. Who was he? 82. Former mechanic. Stubborn, proud, always wore suspenders even with pajamas. A tired smile touched her face and disappeared. He had Parkinson's. His therapy sessions were marked complete for 3 weeks. But I was there. Nobody came. He kept asking whether he had done something wrong. Caleb's expression did not change, but something inside him did. Maya's eyes filled, though she refused to let the tears fall. That was when I stopped hoping it was a mistake. Ranger rose without a sound. His ears snapped forward. For one long second, he stared at the kitchen window above the sink. Then he crossed the room and placed his nose against the glass. Caleb moved immediately. Outside, the backyard was empty. The old shed stood dark. The fence line disappeared into shadow. Then headlights swept across the far end of the yard. A vehicle rolled slowly past the house without stopping. Maya had gone pale. They found me, she whispered. Caleb watched the red taillights vanish down the road. No, he said. They want you to know they can. Ranger returned to Maya's side, pressing his shoulder lightly against her knee. The gesture was small, almost gentle, but it seemed to break something open in her. She reached down and touched the dog's vest with trembling fingers. I don't know what to do next, she said. Caleb looked at the documents again. Who else knows? Maya hesitated. One resident. Can she verify this? She remembers things nobody thinks she remembers. The next morning, Maya led Caleb and Ranger to Willow Creek Senior Living. The main building looked carefully designed to reassure families. White columns, trimmed hedges, flower beds, and a polished brass sign near the entrance. But Caleb noticed what the brochure probably did not mention. The delivery dock at the rear was poorly maintained. One security camera faced too high. A side ramp had cracked along the edge. Maya did not enter through the front. She took them to a small patio behind the activity wing, where an elderly woman sat beneath a striped umbrella with a thin notebook on her lap. Evelyn Price was 76, small and delicate-looking, with short silver hair arranged in soft waves and pale blue eyes that seemed to miss nothing. She wore a lavender cardigan over a cream blouse, a dark gray skirt, and low brown orthopedic shoes. Thin reading glasses rested near the end of her nose. At first glance, she looked like someone's quiet grandmother waiting for afternoon tea. Then she looked at Caleb. You're not from here, she said. No, good. The people from here have learned not to ask useful questions. Maya sat beside her. Evelyn kept notes, Maya explained. Evelyn opened the notebook. Each page contained dates, truck plate numbers, staff names, room numbers, delivery times, and questions written in careful handwriting. She had recorded vehicles that arrived full and left empty. She had listed residents whose services disappeared after their families stopped visiting regularly. They think old people forget, Evelyn said. They think we are too tired to notice. She turned a page and tapped one line with her finger. But we still have eyes. Caleb leaned closer. A company name was written beside 3 separate payment dates, Holloway Health Strategies. His breathing changed before he could stop it. Maya noticed. "What is it?" she asked. Caleb stared at the name. His younger sister Nora had worked for that company before she died, and suddenly, the past no longer felt buried. Caleb did not speak during the drive home. The name Holloway Health Strategies stayed in his mind like a stone caught beneath a boot. He had seen it in Evelyn Price's notebook, written in the same careful blue ink as truck plate numbers and delivery times. 3 payment dates, 3 amounts, 3 entries that should have meant nothing. But Nora had worked there. Back at the house, Ranger paced once through the kitchen, then settled beside the hallway door. The Belgian Malinois seemed to understand that Caleb's silence was different now. Not the calm silence Caleb carried most days. This was older, sharper, the kind that came when a memory returned with teeth. Maya stood near the table, her hands folded around a mug she had not touched. "You don't have to tell me," she said softly. Caleb looked at her. For a moment, his blue-gray eyes seemed colder than usual, but not because of anger toward her. It was grief trying to turn itself into something useful. "My sister was named Nora," he said. "She was 29 when she died." Maya's expression changed at once. Caleb walked to a narrow cabinet beside the living room bookshelf. From the bottom drawer, he removed a dented metal box. It had been unopened for years. Dust lay across the lid. "Nora was good with numbers," he continued. "Too good sometimes. She could look at a bank statement for 10 minutes and know when something was wrong." He gave a faint, humorless smile. "She used to say numbers never lied. People just arranged them until they sounded less guilty." Inside the box were old photographs, a cracked phone case, 2 birthday cards, and a slim black notebook with an elastic band around it. Nora Mercer had been smaller than Caleb, with chestnut brown hair that fell to her shoulders, in soft waves and blue-gray eyes that looked warmer than his. She had worked as a junior accountant after college, practical and patient, the kind of person who remembered coworkers' birthdays and always carried spare pens because someone else would forget one. She believed systems could be fixed if enough honest people paid attention. Caleb opened the notebook. Most pages were ordinary: payroll totals, grocery lists, reminders to call their mother's old friend. Then the handwriting changed. It became smaller, harder, pressed deep into the paper. Transfers not matching vendor services. Ask about Holloway Health. Do not trust the quarterly report. Maya moved closer but did not touch the notebook. Caleb turned another page. At the bottom, written in a hurried line, were the words, "If something happens, don't believe the official explanation." The room seemed to shrink around them. Ranger rose and placed his head against Caleb's knee. Caleb's hand rested between the dog's ears without thinking. "Nora died in a car accident," he said. "That's what they told me. Rainy road, loss of control. I was overseas when it happened." His voice lowered. "I came home after the funeral." Maya did not offer easy comfort. She knew better than to say the right words too quickly. "There may be no connection," she said carefully. "I know, but now you have a reason to look." Caleb stared at the page. "No," he said. "Now I have a reason not to stop." The following morning, the first article appeared online. The headline was clean, polished, and cruel. "Former Willow Creek employee accused of removing confidential resident files." Maya read it at the kitchen counter. Her face went pale as she scrolled. The article quoted an unnamed representative from Willow Creek who claimed she had been emotionally overwhelmed, uncooperative with supervisors, and in possession of sensitive material that could endanger residents' privacy. Caleb took the phone from her hand. A local reporter named Celia Barnes had written it. Her byline photo showed a woman in her early 40s with dark curly hair, rectangular glasses, and a composed expression that made her seem thoughtful rather than malicious. Caleb doubted she understood what she had been used for. The article sounded like it had been handed to her in a polished folder. Maya sat down slowly. "They're making me look dangerous," she whispered. "They're making you look unreliable," Caleb said. "That's different. It feels the same." He did not argue. By noon, a former coworker of Maya's had stopped answering calls. A family that had agreed to discuss missed therapy appointments sent a short message asking to be removed from everything. Another employee wrote that she wanted to help but had 2 children and could not risk losing her job. Fear did not need to shout. It only needed rent, bills, and people who depended on you. That afternoon, Ranger began pawing at the front door. Not barking, not growling, just pawing once, then looking back at Caleb. When Caleb opened the door, a plain white envelope rested on the porch. No stamp, no return address. Inside was a single photocopied page. It was a Willow Creek staffing report from 3 years earlier. Across the top, someone had written in red ink, "They did this to Nora too." Maya's breath caught. Below the message was a date, the same week Nora had died. Caleb read it twice, then a third time. He did not know who had left it, but someone else had been watching. That evening, Maya received another message. This one came from a resident's family member who had spoken to Evelyn earlier that day. Evelyn had been moved, not transferred to a hospital, not taken home by family, moved inside Willow Creek to a restricted care wing where visitors needed approval, and residents had limited access to phones. Maya's hands clenched. They're isolating her. Caleb's jaw tightened. Ranger stood beside him, alert now, sensing the change in both of them. Maya paced near the window. There has to be something they missed, something they couldn't destroy because they forgot it existed. Caleb looked toward the documents spread across the table. "Think," he said. Maya closed her eyes. For several seconds, nothing moved except Ranger's tail brushing once against the floor. Then Maya stopped, her eyes opened. "There's an old records room," she said. Caleb waited. "It's below the administrative wing. Before they remodeled, that's where they kept medication logs, vendor contracts, maintenance files, everything they didn't want in the front office." Her voice grew steadier as she remembered. "Most people think it was emptied years ago." "Was it?" Maya looked at him. "No," she said. "Not completely." Caleb folded Nora's notebook shut. Outside, the sky darkened over Briar Glen. Inside, the room felt different than it had that morning. Less helpless, more dangerous. Maya looked down at Ranger. The dog's ears were forward, his dark amber eyes fixed on Caleb as if waiting for a command. "There may be proof down there," Maya said. Caleb stood. "Then we find it." Rain had begun before midnight. It fell lightly over Briar Glen, turning the sidewalks black and shining beneath the street lamps. Caleb parked his truck behind an abandoned garden supply store across from Willow Creek Senior Living. From there, the rear administrative wing was visible through a line of wet hedges. Maya sat in the passenger seat, staring at the building. During the day, Willow Creek looked gentle, white trim, flower boxes, soft lights in the lobby, a place designed to make families believe their parents were safe. At night, the building looked different, too quiet, too many dark windows. Ranger sat upright in the back seat, his lean Belgian Malinois body perfectly still beneath the tan tactical vest. Rain dotted the glass behind him. His ears were forward, dark amber eyes fixed on the building, as though he could already sense the tension inside. Maya checked the time. "Maintenance changes shifts at 11:30, she whispered. "The night supervisor usually stays near the front wing until midnight. The old records room is below administration. Nobody uses it anymore." Caleb looked at her. "You're sure?" "No," she swallowed. "But I know the building. I know which doors stick. I know which cameras have been broken for months. I know where the staff stopped paying attention." Caleb nodded once. That was enough. They crossed behind the loading dock, keeping close to the shadow of the building. Caleb wore the same green digital camouflage uniform he had worn at the park, boots silent on wet pavement. Maya had changed into a dark hooded jacket over her caregiver scrubs, but the small white edge of her name badge still showed beneath the collar. Ranger stayed close at Caleb's left side, leash short, body low and controlled. The side entrance was near a recycling bin, half hidden behind a stack of folded metal carts. Maya tried one key, then another. Her fingers trembled. The third key turned. The door opened with a soft click. Inside, the air smelled of floor polish, paper dust, and old heat vents. Maya paused just long enough to look down the corridor. A faded poster hung above a bulletin board. "Dignity through care." She stared at the words. Then she looked away. They moved through narrow hallways lit by dim emergency bulbs. Every sound seemed too loud. Caleb's breath, the soft brush of Ranger's paws, rain tapping against a high window. At the far end of the corridor, Maya stopped beside a fire door. "This is it," she whispered. Beyond it was a stairwell leading underground. The records room sat beneath the administrative wing, hidden behind a storage area that had not been renovated when Grant Holloway took over. Maya remembered the space from her first year at Willow Creek when she had been asked to carry old medication logs downstairs. Back then, she had thought it was only a room full of forgotten paper. Now she knew forgotten paper could ruin powerful people. The basement smelled colder than the rest of the building. Metal shelving filled the walls. Old boxes were stacked in uneven rows, labeled by year, department, and disposal date. Maya switched on a small flashlight. "Look for vendor contracts, medication logs, staff exceptions," she said. "Anything with Holloway Health or Grant's initials." Caleb began opening boxes. At first, the papers looked ordinary. A food order, a staffing chart, a maintenance request. But when he placed them beside each other, the pattern became clearer. Medication orders showed residents receiving fewer supplies than invoices claimed. Transportation schedules listed rides that had never been completed. Staffing reports marked full coverage on nights when Maya remembered only 2 aides caring for an entire wing. Then Caleb found a folder marked External Vendor Review, Restricted. Inside were payment records from Bright Horizon Supplies, Evergreen Wellness Consulting, and Northfield Transportation Services. The money did not go directly to Care Services. It moved through several accounts. Each one led back to companies connected to Grant Holloway. Maya stared at the numbers. "They weren't just cutting costs," she said. "They were moving the money." Caleb turned another page and making it look legal. Ranger suddenly froze. Not barked, not growled. Frozen. His head lifted toward the far wall. Caleb followed the dog's line of sight. Behind 2 stacks of old archive boxes was a section of shelving that did not match the rest. It stood a few inches forward from the wall. Maya stepped closer. That wasn't there before. Ranger pressed his nose against the lower edge of the shelf and pawed once. Caleb moved the first box, then another. Behind the shelving was a narrow, recessed alcove. Dust covered the floor. Inside sat a black plastic storage crate with a faded label, Accounting Transition Files 2019. Maya stopped breathing. "That was the year Nora died," Caleb said. His voice was flat, but his hands tightened. Inside the crate were binders, damaged flash drives, and one old external hard drive sealed in a plastic case. Caleb picked it up. A handwritten label had been taped to the side. Internal Meeting Archive. "Do not transfer." Maya looked at him. That could be everything. Before Caleb could answer, a faint electronic tone sounded somewhere upstairs. Once, then again. Ranger's ears snapped toward the stairwell. Maya went pale. The system noticed the door. Caleb moved quickly, but without panic. He gathered the vendor files, the hard drive, and several folders with Nora's name listed in the routing records. As they headed back toward the stairs, Maya spotted one more document half hidden beneath a stack of billing reports. She pulled it free. It was an internal email. The sender was Nora Mercer. Caleb read the first line. "Grant, these transactions do not match actual resident services. I need clarification before I sign anything further." Below it was a reply from someone in Grant's office. "Please stop creating unnecessary concern. The matter has been reviewed." Caleb closed his eyes for half a second. Not long, just enough to let the truth land. Nora had seen it. She had tried to stop it. And someone had told her to stay quiet. The tone sounded again upstairs, louder this time. Maya grabbed Caleb's sleeve. "We have to go." They reached the side corridor just as a door opened somewhere above them. A strip of light appeared across the basement floor. Ranger moved ahead, silent and focused. Caleb guided Maya toward the rear exit. They stepped into the wet night without being seen, crossed the loading dock, and reached the truck moments before a security light swept across the back lot. No one chased them. That made Caleb trust it less. He loaded the files behind the seat, then looked once toward Willow Creek. The polished front entrance glowed through the rain. The sign near the drive still read, "Dignity through Care." Caleb started the engine. Maya held the hard drive tightly in both hands. For the first time since the park, her fear had changed. It was still there, but now it had somewhere to go. "Tomorrow," she said, "we find out what's on this." Caleb looked ahead through the rain. "No," he said. "Tomorrow, they find out what we know." Morning came gray and cold over Briar Glen. The rain had stopped, but water still clung to the cedar branches outside Caleb's house. The folders from Willow Creek covered the kitchen table in careful stacks. Vendor invoices, staffing reports, medication logs, copies of internal emails. The external hard drive sat in the center like a small black weight. None of them wanted to touch too quickly. Maya had not slept. She sat in the same chair she had used the night before, dark circles beneath her brown eyes. Her black hair tied back again with a plain elastic band. The blue caregiver scrubs she had worn under her jacket were wrinkled now, but she still carried herself with the stubborn steadiness of someone who had spent years helping other people through pain while pretending her own did not matter. Caleb stood beside the counter, one hand resting near the hard drive. Ranger lay at his boots, Alert even in rest, his lean Belgian Malinois body angled toward the front door. The dog's amber eyes followed every movement in the room. "We need a lawyer," Maya said. Caleb nodded. Not just any lawyer. They needed someone who understood what the documents meant, someone who knew how to turn fear, suspicion, and scattered records into something that could survive a courtroom. By noon, they were sitting in a narrow office above a pharmacy on Main Street. The lawyer's name was Daniel Price. He was 61, tall but slightly stooped at the shoulders, with thinning silver hair and a neatly trimmed gray beard. His face was long and tired in the way of men who had spent decades listening to people explain how institutions had failed them. He wore a wrinkled navy shirt with the sleeves rolled above his wrists and reading glasses low on his nose. Daniel had once represented families in elder care neglect cases after his own mother spent her final year in a poorly managed facility. That history had given him little patience for polished executives who used words like efficiency, while residents lost meals, medication, or dignity. He read silently for more than an hour. Maya watched him with both hands clasped around a paper cup of water. Caleb watched the lawyer's face. At first, Daniel only frowned. Then he stopped turning pages. "This is serious," he said. Maya leaned forward, but serious isn't the same as finished. The hope in her face dimmed. Daniel lifted the external hard drive. "These records show a pattern. The invoices, staff schedules, vendor payments, Nora Mercer's email. They all point in the same direction. But if we want this to hold, we need proof that the people at Willow Creek knew exactly what they were doing." Caleb's jaw tightened. "They did." "I believe you," Daniel said. "Belief is not enough. Documentation is." He connected the hard drive to an old laptop on his desk. The screen flickered. A folder appeared. Internal Meeting Archive, 2019. Inside were several audio files and one grainy video recording. Daniel clicked the video. The image was poor. A conference room. A long table, a wall clock. 3 men and 1 woman seated beneath fluorescent lights. Grant Holloway appeared at the head of the table, younger by a few years but unmistakable. His charcoal suit was different, his hair darker, but the calm smile was the same. The sound crackled. Then Grant's voice came through. "We need to keep the appearance of stable resident services." Maya stopped breathing. Another voice answered. "The care reductions will create complaints." Grant leaned back in his chair. "Complaints can be managed. Payroll exposure cannot." No one in the office moved. The video continued. A woman's voice spoke next, cautious and tense. "What about the therapy reductions?" Grant replied. "Record them as revised care plans. Families don't read every line unless someone gives them a reason." Daniel paused the video. For several seconds, the only sound in the room was the pharmacy bell ringing downstairs. Then he looked at Maya. "This is not just a pattern anymore." Caleb's eyes stayed on the frozen image of Grant. "What is it?" Daniel folded his hands. "It is intent." Ranger, who had been lying quietly near the office door, suddenly stood and walked toward Daniel's desk. He lowered his nose to a paper that had slipped from one of the folders. Caleb picked it up. It was a copy of a staff exception report from the week Nora died. At the bottom was a handwritten signature from a night supervisor Caleb did not recognize. Beside it, in a different pen, someone had written, "Do not release to family." Maya's face changed. "That isn't about staffing," she whispered. Daniel looked closer. The report listed a vehicle incident involving a company-owned sedan assigned to Holloway Health Strategies. Nora's name was on the driver line. Caleb read the date, the same date as her crash. His hand tightened around the page. Daniel spoke carefully. "This does not prove her accident was caused by them." Caleb looked up. "But it proves they had records connected to it." "Yes." For the first time since Nora's name appeared in Evelyn's notebook, Caleb let himself feel the full weight of what he had avoided for years. His sister had not merely been unlucky. She had been near something dangerous. She had tried to speak, and someone had decided her file should stay hidden. Maya reached toward him, then stopped before touching his arm. Caleb noticed anyway. That small hesitation meant more than comfort would have. Daniel gathered the documents into a separate folder. "We move carefully now," he said. "I'll file preservation requests. We contact state regulators, Adult Protective Services, and the Financial Crimes Unit. We do not confront Grant directly. We do not give them time to destroy what remains." The next weeks moved slowly. There were interviews, requests for records, calls that went unanswered. Families who had been afraid began to return Daniel's messages after hearing that the investigation had become official. One former nurse agreed to speak. She was a short woman in her late 50s named Marjorie Bell. with cropped white blonde hair, steady hazel eyes, and the blunt manner of someone who had spent 30 years telling doctors when they were wrong. She described being ordered to mark medication rounds complete before every resident had been seen. A delivery driver named Aaron Pike came forward next. He was a lean man in his 40s with sun-darkened skin, a narrow face, and a permanent grease mark beneath one thumbnail. He admitted that several deliveries listed under Bright Horizon had never reached Willow Creek. The invoices were real, the cargo was not. Then Evelyn Price was finally allowed a visitor. When Maya entered the restricted wing, Evelyn looked smaller than before, but her pale blue eyes remained sharp. She reached beneath her cardigan and pulled out a folded page she had hidden in the lining of her notebook. "I knew they would come for the rest," Evelyn said. The page contained names of residents whose services had been reduced after their families stopped visiting. Maya's eyes filled. "You kept this?" Evelyn gave a faint smile. "People think old women are fragile because we move slowly. That is their mistake." Months later, the findings became public. Willow Creek Senior Living was placed under emergency review. Financial auditors confirmed money had been routed through shell vendors tied to Grant Holloway and two executives. Resident care funds had been used to cover false contracts, private consulting fees, and hidden payroll accounts. Grant denied everything. He called it administrative confusion. But the video, the invoices, the staff records, Nora's emails, Evelyn's notes, and the witnesses all told the same story. One by one, the people who had once been too afraid began speaking. Not loudly, not perfectly, but enough. A year later, Briar Glen Park looked almost the same as it had on the afternoon Maya first ran across the grass. Caleb stood near the maple tree, green uniform, neat, black boots planted in the sunlit dirt. Ranger raced after a tennis ball with the same mission-ready seriousness he brought to everything else. Maya sat on a bench beside Evelyn, who held a paper cup of coffee in both hands. Her lavender cardigan was buttoned neatly, and her silver hair caught the late afternoon light. Ranger returned with the ball and dropped it at Evelyn's feet. "You are showing off," she told him. Ranger sat straighter. Caleb almost smiled. The years Nora had lost could not be returned. Neither could the fear Maya had carried alone, or the care that had been taken from residents who deserved better. But truth had not stayed buried, and for the first time in a long while, none of them were carrying it alone. Sometimes God does not send a miracle the way we expect. Sometimes he sends a person who chooses not to walk away, a caregiver who refuses to stay silent, an old woman who keeps writing down the truth, a loyal dog who stands guard when fear tries to take over. And sometimes he places broken people in each other's path so they do not have to carry their pain alone. In everyday life, we may never uncover a secret as large as Caleb and Maya did, but we may notice someone being ignored. We may hear a quiet cry for help. We may have one chance to choose compassion instead of convenience, courage instead of silence, and faith instead of fear. Maybe that is where miracles begin, not always in one dramatic moment, but in a small decision to care. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who may need hope today. Leave a comment and tell us where you are watching from, or share a moment when someone's kindness changed your life. And subscribe to Navy SEAL and K9 Stories for more stories of courage, loyalty, faith, and second chances. May God bless you, protect your home, strengthen your heart, and guide you toward the people who need your kindness most.